Hello! I thought it might be fun to answer various questions that people might have for me, so I posted a call on my community tab to see what people had. As it's been a while since my last, update video, but I don't really feel the need to update much of anything. I thought it might be nice to just talk to you guys for a second. I will be skipping over a lot of questions that I've just answered too many times in the past, or I think they need a whole video to explain. But there are also some that just a whole bunch of different people asked, and I'll do those as a group. For example, I got a large amount of questions about if or not I'll continue certain things, or which order I'll make videos in. So here's, answers to all of that. On if or not I'll remake or continue Starkit's Prophecy, the answer is that it's complicated. I think my channel's demographic has shifted since then from adults to teenagers, and I'm not sure if or not I want to go forward or not. I always intended to finish Starkit, but life got in the way and they took a long time to make, despite the quality. On if or not I'll be doing certain iSpoils, the idea is that every single book is technically in the plan, but I'm going to go in a very specific order, which I know I've been over 1,000,000 times, but I'll let everyone know again. I am doing iSpoil chronologically and not in release order. My plan is to keep working forward through the main series books and not worry about anything that is prequel content, strictly prequel content, until I catch up with whatever the currently running series is. Then I'm going to loop back around to Dawn of the Clans. If an element of prequel content is relevant somehow to the main series book that I'm about to cover, then I will go back and cover it, but otherwise, if it's irrelevant, I'm not going to. I went back for The Rise of Scourge because it was both short and it was immediately relevant to the Darkest Hour. And this whole setup is just because it's what I want to do. I want to make modern era iSpoil videos more than prequel ones. I'm kind of famously a prequel hater in general. Not just of Warrior Cats, I just don't like prequels. It's fine if it's something that specifically takes place in the past but has no relevancy to the current day, but if it's something that takes place in the past but does have relevancy to the current day, I don't care. On the subject of Frequent Fiasco, I'm probably not going to continue that unless I reboot it completely. It was just silly business, and nobody really watched them when they were originally coming out, so it was demotivating. Also, there's a lot that I don't like about it now. I still plan to do original content in the future, but less made-up-on-the-spot impulsive stuff like Frequent Fiasco was. I really just want to finish something and then kind of, not post it all at once, but, know I already have it done before I start posting it, On the subject of more Wings of Fire videos, maybe someday, maybe even soon, I don't know. The problem is that Wings of Fire is actually good. So often the canon situation I'm making fun of is already funny before I got to it. There also hasn't been a new Wings of Fire book in a pretty long time. I mean, there was the Big Field Guide thing, don't get me wrong, but there hasn't been any new main series content for Wings of Fire, so it hasn't really had my interest recently. I still think it's better than Warrior Cats, but I haven't really been thinking about it. Another really common question is how Pepper is doing, and Pepper is great. Pepper plays, Pepper runs, Pepper eats food. He's doing very well ever since his surgery, and he doesn't even need to wear pajamas for his over-grooming very often anymore. I loved seeing him active and interested in life. Getting his teeth pulled out was the best thing I could have done for him and his stomatitis in the end, especially considering how much time I spent thinking that brushing his teeth was gonna help. But he's much better now, and that's what matters. Now on to more specific questions. Tangerine Catcher YouTube asks, why are we asking questions? Because I asked you to. I Will Consume Your Lawn asks, when's the next Cherry Clan video coming out? It has been 2 minutes. Next question. B Orange 12 asked, which has been your favorite character for the longest, Squirrelflight or Dovewing? And if you could say anything to any character, what would it be and what would you say? This is kind of hard, but I'm pretty sure it's Dovewing. I always liked Squirrelflight, even as a kid, but it was a passive enjoyment. And when I got back into the series, I missed 4 or 5 books, a couple years of Warrior Cats for a period of time because I felt guilty for not finishing SkyClan's Destiny. Dovewing became my favorite quickly because I reread Omen of the Stars at that point. But when I was a kid, my favorite cat was Ashfur, and I can't remember who it was before Ashfur. I really have no idea. So I don't know. But I also don't think I'd actually have anything to say to them. It would be awkward to coexist with any of these characters as people. Fenizin asks, if you could make any change at any point to the family tree, what would you change? And I could easily make a whole video about this. In fact, I might. But I think that the biggest thing that I would do is split bigger litters where a lot of the children eventually had kittens apart from each other. I'd take Cinderpelt and Brackenfur, put them in one litter, Thornclaw and Brightheart in a second litter, with 2 separate sets of parents. And then I do the same for Sorreltail's first litter. Poppyfrost and Honeyfern can keep being Sorreltail's kits, and then Molepaw and Cinderheart can be somebody else's. This would have benefits like making it so Spotfur and Bristlefrost are no longer Stemleaf's cousins, and the same for Lilyheart and Snowbush, and the same for Sorrelstripe and Dewgno's. YouCanWolf1947 says, what would you like to see as Warrior Cats merch? Example, keychains, stickers, etc. And that's definitely simple character enamel pins. But I don't believe that they'd ever make one that wasn't hyper-realistic and over-detailed, so I just can't see it happening. If they made a character enamel pin, it would be like jayfeather mini enamel pin, and it would be really, really busy and tacky. Very, very hard to see any detail on it. Something that the Warrior Cats website, or whoever designs the merchandise, doesn't really understand is how much of a science we have some of these character designs down to, and if they could just tap into that and understand the main, simplified, boiled-down characteristics that make us recognize and understand something as a Warrior Cats character, they would immediately start making better merchandise. Part of a Daily Breakfast 2047 says, are you planning to stop your mini-talks or just cat talks in general at all? If I run out of cats. Only 1,100 more to go, guys. 7011 has 3 questions for me. 1, is there anything that you think later arcs did better than The Prophecies Begin? And that's interesting characters. The Prophecies Begin does not hold inside it characters that can really grab you. And don't get me wrong, Fireheart has a personality, Sandstorm does, more people do than in any of the other arcs, and the story is just better in general, but you're not really getting, people who care about them or their situations the same way they do characters in later arcs, or get invested in the personal drama of their lives like you do starting in Series 2. What are some ways you personally noticed the Warriors fanbase change over the years? What do you think has gotten better, and what, if anything, has gotten worse? Honestly, the fandom is better in almost every single way now than it was when I was a teenager. Obviously, it can be hard for me to traverse fandom spaces without seeing someone being rude or being nasty about something, but if you go back to 15 years ago, it was hard to get anywhere. Imagine the worst Warrior Cats conversation that you've ever had, and if it didn't take place before 2014, was it really that bad? 3, on a scale from 1 to 10, how uncool would you say Bumblestripe's name is? 3? He could be worse. He could be like Bumblenose, or Bumbleface, or Bumblefoot. Bumble is a pretty cute name for a cute cat, but Bumblestripe is a mean cat, so Bumblepaw and Bumblestripe just make me think of a guy who bumbles around and walks into trees before I think about bees. Falcon Arc says, just wondering how you make your designs for the characters. Do you design the character based on vibes? I try to be book accurate to the characters, usually based on what they're like in the allegiances, unless it's something that's kind of ingrained in the fandom. Like, for example, canonically, aside from the white belly and blue eyes, Hawkfrost looks like Bramblestar. I ignore that completely because Fanon would struggle to recognize him if I didn't. Some characters I make certain ways because they look just like other characters. Twig Branch I gave a different body type and head shape, same with Grey Wing. It can be hard to balance wanting to be technically accurate, though. For example, Bristlefrost. Bristlefrost's description is identical to Dovewing's. And she's related to her. And she canonically resembles her and her kittens, which, was fine when she was just a background kit, but then she became a main character, and that was more of an oh no situation. I don't want people to think this video is about Dovewing. But by some miracle, I had already given her some cream counter shading, which balanced it out. I try to never actually make a character into a different color type, though, and that includes making them calicos or tortoiseshells, because that would make it very confusing for someone who's only ever read the books. And even regardless of that, as someone who both reads and participates in the fandom, I continue to mistake those tortoiseshell Nighthearts for any character that isn't Nightheart. Similarly, Felinas Productions asks, how did you come up with your design for Poppyfrost? I love her design and thought it was an interesting one. I put a poppy bud on her, over her eye. It's nothing more detailed than that, I'm sorry. Otherwise, she's just a pale tortie, which I guess was probably intended as a dilute calico, but I interpreted her as just being mostly white, and that's mostly because I associate poppies with oranges and reds. Maybe I could start drawing her as being pink and gray instead. That would be cute, actually, and then I wouldn't have to sacrifice anything I like about the design. Nitro Indigo asks if I've read any of the other Aaron Hunter series, and the answer to that is only the first half of Seekers and the first 2 Bravelands books. I do plan on more sometime soon, though. User asks if I would support the errands ending the series by having an earthquake cause every single cat to die by falling tree. Well, the answer to that is easy. I don't support them ending the series. Meow Mix asks, will you be planning to make full warrior skits in the style you use for the shorts? I really enjoy it, and I would love to see longer form content with it. The answer to this is that I simply can't. The difference between a 30-second video and a 2-minute one is massive, and I can only experiment with style in shorts because they're so short. Space Umbra Doggos asks, does Mapleshade qualify as a Karen? And my answer to that is ha 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 ha. But no, actually, I wouldn't actually say so. If we're being honest here, I'd more so point to cats like ShadowClan's Scorchfur in A Vision of Shadows. He wants to speak to the manager really, really badly. Dustpelt in Series 2, Thornclaw in Series 7. Toracat's Bell asks, if you were a fish, what kind would you be? A red-eye tetra. Come to Lily asks, what I think the last Warrior Cats book should have been? My answer is no. I don't think it should have ended. A lot of what appeals to me about Warrior Cats is its endless soap opera continuity. I wouldn't probably care about the series so much if it ended at any point. If forced to answer, I would say The Darkest Hour, ended at the end of the first series, or never. A lot of people think that The Last Hope had a lot of finality to it, but I think ending the series there would have put a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, especially if I ever reread the books and found out that arcs 3 and 4 were largely composed of the authors not knowing at all to do with the plot they were setting up. Corvid Fanatic 1 asks, who would you eliminate from the series if you got to kill off one currently alive character? I don't actually care to kill anyone off. Even cats I've stated that I kind of want to die, like Crowfeather. I only want him to die if it's fun and interesting, otherwise I don't really want him to. A lot of deaths recently have been super lackluster anyway, and I don't want a cat to die simply because they're too old, beyond Misty Star, who's dead now, and even with Misty Star, it was more the fact that RiverClan hadn't been touched with a 10-foot pole since Crooked Star's Promise came out in 2011. Snowstar something 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 asks, why aren't StoneClan cats allowed to date? Which is a question I guess I go over a lot in my Patreon, but not really so much over here. I did mention it briefly in that StoneClan video, but I also think that in that StoneClan video I explained to myself, but you know what, I'll go over it. The StoneClan cats aren't allowed to date for multiple reasons. The first and most important reason is because everyone recording for StoneClan are all different ages, and some of them are under 18. And I don't want adults recording romantic interactions with 17-year-olds ever, so I eliminated the possibility entirely. Second, even if everyone was an adult, it would encourage people to seek out and solicit romantic relationships for their cats, which can be rather creepy and uncomfortable. And third, it's because so many of the lines would be shipping nonsense that I think I'd not be able to dig any jokes out of it. Everything would just turn into sludge, and I'd be like, stop recording shipping nonsense, and they'd be like, we cannot stop. It's all we can do. And even though these rules are in place, I am a bit lenient about it. I'll allow people I know are adults to have, like, a kitten that looks kind of like the cat they ship their cat with and stuff like that. And it's fine for them to have close, personal, but platonic relationships, and anyone can do whatever they'd like with their own characters. They can write their own fanfiction, they can do whatever they want, as long as it isn't recording romantic interactions. The only exception here is Skywing and Sunpool, who are grandfathered in because they were together as a joke before this rule was in place. And also divorce, 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 divorce. Rockeater Link asks, do you enjoy your job / do you have any tips for someone wanting to be a YouTuber or an animator like you are? Honestly, I do enjoy my job, but I'm tired a lot. And it's way better than having a normal job for me, which I really struggled to do in general because of my ADHD, but at the same time it comes with its own challenges. Keeping up with a weekly upload schedule kind of erases my ability to ever work on personal projects, and my entire buffer is usually eaten up at any point where a video would need longer than a week for any reason. Even small videos usually take me all week to complete. And that's the worst thing. The answer to the second half of the question is to make lots of things. Lots of things that look relatively polished very quickly, and often that's not feasible. If you want to do YouTube as a full-time job, animation might be the worst possible way to do it. It's not going to make you very much money at all, and it's going to take up all of your time. My advice is to cut as many corners as you can while still allowing your work to look complete. Prioritize what gets the point across clearly, like solid outlines and being fully colored, over having a more detailed content or better animated content. Reuse assets and post as much as you can manage. Figure out a way to do Patreon, too. Make sure your Patreon has incentives that aren't simply something that you can copy-paste around or leak. Patreon is the only reason I can do what I do. YouTube AdSense is not a reliable source of income, and anything could go bad at any minute with that. Similarly, TwigBranch4556 asks, what's the bad stuff about being a Warriors creator? Keeping a schedule is hard. You don't always have the time, and you don't always have good ideas. But the only way to make a living from this is to just keep posting. I often forget things that I wanted to do, disclaimers I wanted to add, or other stuff because I'm hurrying so much to finish. I don't have any time to reflect while creating, and often I word things in ways that if I was given just a little bit more time, I would never have said. Additionally, you don't make much more money than you would working a normal job, if at all. So if you don't enjoy this, you're not going to make up for that in how much money you make, or anything like that. The fandom stuff, additionally, can be very, very hard. I am a big fish in a small pond. I am not large enough to make lots of money, or to live like a celebrity, or have any of the perks that a celebrity might have, but I still receive a lot of social drawbacks as if I am. People talk about me like I'm a very big deal and not, well, a person, because I have some level of influence in a niche community for children's cat books. And nowhere else. And that's why I just don't do social media anymore. I can't handle it, because I can't handle seeing my name. It spikes my anxiety, even in positive contexts sometimes. Part of why I left Twitter was because they actually had this second page that it defaulted to that wasn't your following, but instead posts it thought you would like. And with some frequency, it was putting people's discussions about me in front of me. So yeah, it can also be an anxiety nightmare if enough people hate you. It's impossible to please everyone. I think that's the biggest thing. When I am genuine on here and I talk about my thoughts and my opinions on a fandom subject, there's always going to be somebody who it upsets, and honestly, I don't like to upset people. I want to make people happy, and I can't do that universally. I know people tend to think that you get thicker skin as you get older, but I've mellowed out a lot in the past 8 or 9 years, and the person I was at 22, my opinions at 22, the fact I wanted to fight everyone at 22, that isn't who I am anymore. But back on the subject, I think that another bad thing about being a Warrior Cats creator is that I don't have much of an ability to branch out from Warrior Cats, and when I do, people don't really watch those videos. I am grateful for YouTube, though, because I really struggle at working any sort of normal job, and I don't think I would have been able to groom dogs much longer at the time, regardless of if or not I could have fallen back on this. I don't know where I would have been right now without that. Captain the Great asks, why is your voice so unique? And, I don't know. It has gotten deeper more recently, and it's definitely deeper than when I started. You can tell if you compare my talking videos from, 2017 to now. It's always just been like this. I remember a first grade presentation where they were filming us, and I was really, really little, and I was trying to be professional and serious, but I guess in a funny way, and it didn't land or entertain anyone because it felt so unsuitable due to me being, half the size of my classmates and having a baby seal voice. Maybe it's just the tone that came more comfortably to me when I was a kid. I can go a bit deeper if I try, or if I'm super groggy in the morning, or if I've been recording for a really, really long time. Creativity Runs Wild wants to know a few things, but as the first question is like a whole video on its own, I'm focusing on the second one, which is, do you have any advice for aspiring Warrior Cats YouTubers? This is kind of a repeat of a previous question, but either way. If you are making humor videos that are animated or semi-animated content and want people to be engaged and want more of that, complete the outlines and complete the colors. Make it look finished, even if you're only making slides. Prioritize making something that looks complete over drawing something that's more detailed but unfinished looking. This is going to be the difference between someone watching it after they click it or not. There are people who have been much, much funnier than me in this space who have floundered and stopped posting because their videos were only made of loose sketches and couldn't hold attention. And if you can animate one single thing in your video, make it the mouths. I know this doesn't seem like a big deal, and it really isn't that big a deal. There are plenty of videos out there where the characters are not moving their mouths. But if you put in just that little pinch of effort to make their mouths move, you're going to have people watching it more. With the solid outlines and the colors, though, this is especially true if you're doing something for xenofiction like Warrior Cats or Wings of Fire, because a lot of our ability to recognize characters is in the color. When you can't tell the difference between the characters at a glance, it's going to make you less interested in the joke the person is trying to tell. If what you want to do is talking, do not ask me, because I am not actually good at it. The second I learn how to record something properly, or at least stop being so lazy that I don't record things properly, is the second that everything goes down in flames. Likewise, if the kind of Warrior Cats YouTuber you want to be is someone who participates in, multi-animator projects and stuff like that, I have no advice. Ask somebody else. Celeste wants to know how I got into animation, and the answer to that is basically just Alley Cat. Alley Cat's Warriors of the Forest was something that I found really early on, and it made animation feel accessible to me in the way that nothing else ever had. Things like internet fan animations for Tohu or Eevee Party did absolutely nothing to my brain chemistry, and this was because of the way it was composed. As something I could understand with hard outlines like I could make in Paint and photo backgrounds, it gave me this, oh, I can actually make things moment. This might sound a little ridiculous now, but in 2006, 2007, just being able to make an animated video felt like forbidden knowledge. I didn't really want to even make Warrior Cats videos. I was just inspired by those in particular. In fact, it was really infrequent that I made a Warrior Cats video until at least 2011. The Blazing Blue wants to know if I'll ever remake a video. And I do think about it every so often. I kind of want to make a new version of Fireheart Gets to Keep the Kitten He Found, that changes the van joke. It was made during a time where that was a frustrating problem, but it didn't age well and nobody has context on it, nor do I want to give that context. Leonie Breezeforests asks, will you ever play Moss Shadow's Warrior Cats scratch games? They're great. I recommend Severance version 2 as a starting point. I don't know who Moss Shadows is in particular, but people have sent me a lot of messages about Warrior Cats Scratch lately and the games kids make on there, so it might be something that's fun to do. Maybe I'll do a little series about it. We'll call it Moonkitti Gets Scratched or something. Sunbird wants to know if I would ever consider making another Wiki complaints video, and I don't think I will. Generally speaking, while I do obviously think that the Wiki should, look at itself every so often and ask, am I still making content decisions based on rules from 2011, there are so many people in there who can't do anything but follow those rules regardless of anything, and they don't need the extra work of cleaning up the kinds of messes a bunch of angry 12-year-olds are going to create. Honestly, when I made the first video, I made it under the impression that the Wiki was like an unmovable force. I encourage everyone who wants it to get better to just start working on it and join in the community unironically to improve it and not just to visit and complain. My biggest problems with it are usually just, people trying to wield their decisions on the Wiki for power and control over a narrative, or to be right about something, as opposed to trying to make an unbiased and accurate resource, and honestly, that's a problem I have with almost all Warrior Cats resources that have ever existed. It's not exclusive to the Wiki. And I don't think it'll ever go away, because it's not like other series where we have a real author or anyone who cares. Just look at the color-picked nightmares in the new Ultimate Guide. So we can just hope that the people working on this resource care about the series and love the series enough to do their best to portray it in an accurate and factual way. Even if I internally scream every single time I see the word pale on Blue Star's page. Jayfeather Animations asks when I'm going to make Frozen 2, the video I claimed I was going to make years ago and never did, and I really need to. I'll get right on that. Chip Animations asks, favorite character from a Starless clan? That is Lightleap and Fringe Whisker. Scrollstar Lover 12, me too, asks, what is your favorite Cats of the Clan's cat or Wings of Fire character? And I'm sorry, I can't tell the field guides apart in my mind, so a specific Cat of the Clan's cat doesn't come to me. But my favorite Wings of Fire characters are Turtle and Anemone. Veltonart says, opinions on Ivypool and Hollyleaf. They're okay. Not my favorites. There isn't anything wrong with them, they're just not my type of character. A lot of what makes Holly and Ivy different from others is the way that they don't empathize with the people around them, and I can't really tap into that. I prefer female characters who are a little bit less girl mean and a little bit more girl miserable, if that makes any sense. I really like characters who struggle a lot emotionally, but I don't really relate with them because they don't really relate with others. They're both cats who tend to think of themselves first and their families, siblings, and friends second, which Again, please don't take me saying negative things about a character as damning people who like them or relate to them. You have your own reasons for feeling that way, and it's never going to be wrong to relate to a character for any reason. It's just what prevents me from doing so as an individual, as a reader. Chara's Animation World says, what would you do if Squirrelflight wasn't in the books, and how do you think they would be different? This is an incredibly easy question to answer. I think in this hypothetical, Firestar would have a son, and his name is Copa, and he does everything she does except as a boy, and would be universally celebrated in the fandom as the best character in the series. Autumnberry says, opinions on Tesla Cybertruck. Purgatory Productions 310 says, what character are you most looking forward to seeing in the new graphic novel style? This is a really good question. Brindleface is a big one, alongside Ashfur and Ferncloud. Bramblekid and Tawnykit, too. And if they continue on forever, obviously I want to see Squirrel and Leaf, and Midnight the Badger. And honestly, I'm looking forward to visuals from the Lake Territory, like ThunderClan's Quarry Camp and the Gathering Island, and how they draw the environments in StarClan and the Dark Forest. I would love to see that stuff in particular. I'm the guy they warned you about who likes the lake better than the forest. Yes, it has less named locations. No, I don't think that it's less interesting. User asks, will you be making another clan in ClanGen? And, maybe if it ever seems suitable to end Cherry Clan, we can probably do like a playthrough of Life Gen or something similarly modded. Epic Shovelblade says, what is your least favorite Warrior Cats book other than Spotted Leaf's Heart? Yellowfang's Secret, Blue Star's Prophecy, and Sunset are all books that I do not really enjoy reading. Mangledy says, are you still planning on making a video about misogyny and warrior cats? That's a real who knows situation. Sunny made a pretty good one, and I think there's a lot that I could say, but even if I did go through with something like that, I'd be met with a lot of toxicity that I don't really think I'm prepared to receive right now. This fandom isn't as bad as communities for video games and other series with a lot of that sort of thing, but the problem is there and looming whenever I think about talking about something that might upset people who see talking about inequality or character morality in media as a political stance that they're opposed to, or as a personal attack on them for liking it when that's never the intention. And I just don't feel like getting into that right now. Teddytron asks, do you watch Skibidi Toilet? I have seen Skibidi Toilet. Yo Human Frisk asks, will you ever talk about Jayfeather's one true love, the stick? Jayfeather and the stick jokes were already old to me by the time I started posting cat videos, I'm afraid. Plus, they broke up. He snapped that stick in half. That guy likes apple pie wants to know if I think that the series should be rebooted. While I think that the answer is kind of yes, I would really like it for them to just start over and fix a bunch of stuff. Well, not fix a bunch of stuff, but like, I don't know, just give it to somebody else to rewrite, maybe? Being rebooted is not exactly something that happens to a book series. I think we can look forward to television and graphic novel adaptations that possibly put more thought into the characters and world instead. If it was quote-unquote rebooted, I wouldn't want it rebooted by the current team because I think that the original series is just of a higher quality than the books that we've been getting recently. Akira asks if I would be surprised if another arc comes out, and also, do you feel like Warrior Cats has gone on too long? Well, we already know the next arc is coming out, and I would be more surprised if they stopped making them. Second question, Warrior Cats books coming out is the only thing keeping me from getting into Days of Our Lives or General Hospital or something, so this is better. I've got a lot of questions about Warrior Cats ending, and I don't want it to. A lot of what I like about Warrior Cats is it just going and going and going and going. I love Warrior Cats as an endless fountain of confusing content, and I wouldn't want it to be anything else. Ashton asks, do you feel the same shame as I do, having to walk into the 9 to 12-year-old section of the bookstore to get to the Warrior Cats area? And honestly, I think nothing of it. Who's to say that I'm not a mother if they recognize me as being an adult? Children don't make money, and they can't buy the book on their own. If it embarrassed me, I could easily go, well, actually, it's for my little sister, see? But it doesn't. Donnie asks, have you played or known someone who played the Roblox Warrior Cats Ultimate Edition game? And have you gotten some design ideas from the game into your own characters? I still haven't actually played much of Warrior Cats Ultimate Edition. I did a little bit of it while it was still in beta, but afterwards, I've not really touched it much, if at all. If it was more of a game, with goals and funny numbers that went up, I would probably play it all the time, but I just can't get into role-playing like I could when I was a kid. As far as designs go, a lot of cats I see from the game are really over-detailed, and I think that's in part because it's harder to make a super detailed design than it is to make a plain one, and their really heavy focus on making gradients from the colors, even if the design is otherwise simple, makes all of them look a little bit too busy, and I don't really know where to focus my eyes. I prefer designs where I can remember all of the aspects if I were to draw it without a reference. Ken's Blaze Draw Forever 215 asks, have you ever felt burnt out by making videos? Yeah. You never really get a break when you do YouTube stuff. It's just the way of it. But what's nice is doing stuff that can make it so that I can get a bit more done. Like this. Foxy Foxo asks, which cat do you think should get the next Super Edition / novella? And after Ivypool, I hope it's a new character that we haven't met before, but I'm assuming the cat most likely to get one eventually is Jayfeather. Unfortunately, they don't seem to make novellas anymore, though, which is kind of sad. Hold on. They said before the reason that they weren't doing novellas was because they were focusing on graphic novels, which implied that the team at Working Partners had something to do with the scripts for the new graphic novels, which is completely believable. But there is a team working on the current graphic novels now, and they're just an adaptation, so hypothetically, if they were telling the truth, maybe novellas are back on. Laurel asks, how long does it take for you to make an ice boil? This depends on book length, usually at least a couple weeks for a normal one, but I can get a novella done in a little over a week. Hard to say for super editions. Either way, unfortunately, they usually take more time than I have allotted for a single video. Ambimates asks, what do you think will help us grow as a community and as a fandom? And is this something that everyone can help, or is it more specific to certain people? And I think that we all just need to stop judging each other so much. Cats, they're here to be judged. We should judge fictional characters to the ends of the earth. But as a community, we can be very, very harsh to each other over incredibly minor things. But at the risk of sounding generic here, people forget that there are human beings on the other side of the screen. I don't really care what villains someone relates with, or if they like Squirrel Crow, or some other ship I don't like, or if they're a fan of Bramblestar, or anything like that. It is not a reflection of a person. I think that we can both not make personal judgments based on book opinions, and have intelligent discussions about the series and the characters at the same time. Likewise, I think that people need to stop taking judgments of characters personally, as if a character doing something wrong is a reflection of yourself for liking that character. And if someone else disagrees with you about something, talk about the books and their contents without talking about the other person's inherent morality or intelligence. I know this can be hard. Often it's going to seem that when somebody doesn't recognize, say, a flaw in the writing that relates to a real-world issue, it seems like the person is denying the real-world issue, and sometimes they are, but you're not going to be able to tell that just from them not recognizing its presence in Warrior Cats. They're going to say something else. But that person is not going to be convinced by being personally attacked. I think a lot of this comes from the same place as assuming that there's only two things that a cat or a human being can be. A completely good person who has never done any evil, or a completely evil person who has never done any good. There are no thoughts about in-betweens. I don't blame the fandom for this, because it's the way that the books talk about their subjects as well, especially with the Dark Forest and Starclan parallel thing. But Hollyleaf, I'm speaking directly to you here. Your mom doesn't need to die for having had a half-clan relationship. It's not hurting anybody, and she's probably also not going to do it again. And I think that's where I'm going to leave this off. Seems like a good place to. I hope this was interesting.